Oh, yes, very much. 2 weeks. That's how long you're lasting now. 14 days. So I wouldn't be so, oh, yes, very much, if I were you. It's just a piece of impartial advice.
During my recent review of the Medusa Touch, I mentioned director Jack Gould's previous works, including one film, which I personally believe is his greatest. A film featuring some of the finest British actors of 2 generations. An adaptation of one of the great stage dramas of the 1920s for a then modern audience of the 70s. A project that should have worked, but was such a failure at the domestic box office, it never received a US theatrical release. Instead, being given the dubious honour of being a HBO premiere in 1979. But looking back nearly 50 years later, it's a movie that has not only stood the test of time, but is quite possibly one of the most underrated war films of the 1970s. I'm talking about ACES High. So, what did I think? Set over 1 week in October 1917, ACES High tells the story of Second Lieutenant Stephen Croft, played by Peter Firth, as he joins No. 76 Squadron, led by his older sister's boyfriend, fighter ace Major John Gresham, played by Malcolm McDowell. But Croft is about to discover war is no game, and Gresham is a changed man. The biggest problem ACES High faced on its release in 1976 was it seemed to be just another retelling of R.C. Sherriff's Journey's End. The original 1928 stage production, alongside All Quiet on the Western Front, had become a cultural behemoth, with audiences filled with veterans who had fought on the front lines only 10 years earlier, seeing some semblance of the reality of what they had gone through finally being brought to the public stage. By 1929, there were over 30 different stage productions running across the globe, with 14 in the United Kingdom alone. This was followed in 1930 by a film version directed by future Frankenstein director James Whale, along with a German remake in 1931, which kept the British viewpoint and was a surprise hit in the dying days of the Weimar Republic. And over the decades that followed, there were constant revivals, countless amateur dramatic productions, while the text became part of the British education curriculum. Unfortunately, by the time of ACES High release in 1976, thanks to the public's overexposure to the source material, what had been stunningly brave and original 50 years earlier was now stale and cliched, not helped by generations of writers and directors who, instead of taking inspiration from Sherriff, just lifted whole sections of the story and characterization and passed it off as their own jaded work.
Hear the words I sing, war's a horrid thing. So I sing, 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 ding-a-ling-a-ling.
Even director Jack Gould was wary of using Journey's End as a source material, and was only convinced after reading Howard Barker's screenplay. Barker, to this day best known as a playwright, took the decision to expand the story setting, not only taking it out of the single location of a frontline trench and placing the action in the skies above the Western Front, but also showing us glimpses of the wider war never seen in the play. From the first aid post, where the pilots, detached from the ground fighting, witness the true cost of the conflict, to the brothel behind the front line, where the pilots seek out some carnal pleasure, a little relief, a little companionship from the constant threat of certain death. We even meet the generals of the High Command, the men responsible for sending the pilots of 76 Squadron to their ultimate fate. But unlike movies such as Stanley Kubrick's Paths of Glory, where those in command are shown as cold, emotionless, unfeeling in their disdain for the men in the trenches, here the generals act just like the pilots of Number 76 Squadron. They tell ribald, scandalous stories of sordid marital infidelity.
So next to the cabinet room, there is this bedroom.
Correct. With a private entrance.
While feigning indifference to the pilot's pleas, depending on the chain of command to carry the weight of the knowledge that men will die because of their orders. While director Jack Gold shows the same strange duality in technique and style he would again show later on in The Medusa Touch. One moment scenes are flat, pedestrian, with the director using well-worn and predictable tropes to show a character's inner turmoil, such as Lieutenant Crawford's terror as he lies in bed at night, contemplating having to go up the next morning, betraying Gold's background as a TV director. The next, moments of sheer visual beauty. From the establishing shot of a French field hospital as a horse rears in terror from shells landing close by, to the moment the squadron preparing to take off in the cold light of an October dawn, the rising sun casting colours reminiscent of a painting by Constable or Turner. And with aerial combat, which, when you consider the limitations of budget and aircraft supply, the producers were forced to pad out the final large-scale battle with stock footage from the Blue Max, must be considered simply stunning. And the credit has to go to cinematographer Jerry Fisher. It's easy to see why, with sequences where Uncle, played by Christopher Plummer, and Gresham walk the airfield at night, planning the flight for the next day, and you realise the entire scene is lit up by the gun flashes of British artillery in the distance, predating similar scenes in films such as Saving Private Ryan and Sam Mendes' 1917 by decades. While Gold's attention to detail as a director is second to none. From the embarrassment of the mess corporal as he realises the personal effects of the dead pilot Croft is replacing have not yet been removed from Croft's quarters.
Sorry about that, sir. Should have been sent on, sir.
To the patches roughly sewn onto the body of Uncle's plane to cover the bullet holes. But it's as an actor's director Gold truly succeeds. There isn't a single bad performance in Aces High, from young Winston's Simon Ward as the burnt-out Crawford.
Precious, please. Let me go.
To Christopher Plummer as Uncle, the oldest member of the squadron. Peter Firth plays Croft. He is the protagonist, but is played almost like a cipher for the audience. Firth today is best known as playing tough, no-nonsense characters in films such as The Hunt for Red October.
How many agents did the KGB put aboard my boat?
Your boat, Captain.
Yes.
This vessel belongs to the people of the Soviet Union.
But here, Firth plays Croft with a sincere, almost overeager naivete. A man who still worships his squadron leader as his former house captain.
I think we should repair this one and have a look at that one. It may need replacing. I'll re-rig it, sir.
It's Croft.
But the film belongs to Malcolm McDowell. McDowell was already a star of British cinema, having appeared in If, A Clockwork Orange and Royal Flash, amongst other films. But for me, this is perhaps McDowell's finest performance of the decade. Playing Gresham, first as a devil-may-care, almost arrogant former house captain addressing his old school in 1916, as we are given glimpses of his ruthless nature on the front line, and Ursat's version of Paul's address to his school in All Quiet on the Western Front, to the aged and burnt-out drunk, barely a year later unable to sit in his cockpit without having a drink, and yet revealing in a sequence at a French field hospital searching for a prisoner he shot down.
Il est important et moi pour le 24 heures. C'est un written law. Unwritten law, can you explain?
Non, c'est vrai, il a raison. Il peut l'avoir pour 24 heures, c'est une loi tacite.
He doesn't understand, idiot.
That Gresham really is still only a 22-year-old boy pretending to be a man, realizing, like millions of others too late, that war is no game.
Order!
Aces High flopped when it was released in 1976, and it's easy to see why. Yes, it's an anti-war film, but the cliches running through it were unappealing to jaded audiences of the mid-70s, fed on a diet of post-Vietnam political thrillers and pessimism. A pessimism that would not begin to lift until Star Wars arrived at the box office a year later. But, unlike so many films of that decade, 50 years later, ACES High has managed to remain relevant, losing none of the power in its performances or battle scenes. And a final moment with Malcolm McDowell that will remain with you long after the picture has ended. ACES High is available in multiple formats. For me, it's a flawed minor classic, giving us a rare glimpse at the air war over the Western Front of World War I. With flying sequences and stunts, filmed before the advent of CGI that will have you exclaiming, "Hang on, this was done for real?" I say, go watch it.
Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained? Is this not why you are here?
Something really odd is going on with YouTube's viewing figures at the moment, so if you liked this episode of So What Did I Think and want to see more, please click like and make sure you're subscribed. Remember, always subscribe. Thanks for watching.